Seeing beyond the absurd is like looking at the sun without blinking, a revelation that can blind you forever. Have you ever woken up one day and felt like everything seemed strange, like suddenly the things you do every day didn't quite make sense? This confusing feeling isn't unique to you. It's something we all experience when we stop to think about life. Imagine being in a theater watching a play where no one knows their lines properly. The actors improvise, the lights dim, and you start to wonder, why am I here? What does it all mean? This feeling of strangeness, of something not fitting into the puzzle of life, is what philosophers like Albert Camus called absurdity. Absurdity isn't just a difficult word adults use. It's a real experience that even children can experience. It's like when you ask an important question and all the adults remain silent, or give answers that explain nothing. This silence of the world in the face of our most important questions is the beginning of what we'll explore today. Think about the questions you've asked yourself that no one quite knew how to answer. Why are we here? Where do we go when it all ends? Why do people suffer? These are questions that seem simple, but they make the whole world go silent, as if they don't know what to say. The absurdity lies in this moment of silence, this space between the question we ask and the lack of response we receive. It's like shouting in a giant cave and not even hearing the echo return. Camus didn't speak of the absurd as a distant theory, but as an experience that permeates ordinary life, the silence of the world in the face of our questions, the emptiness that reveals itself in the repetitive daily grind. Anyone can feel this upon waking up any day and realizing that everything seems meaningless. Albert Camus was a writer and philosopher who lived in difficult times, during wars and conflicts that made many people question the meaning of life. He wasn't one of those philosophers who remained locked in ivory towers, pondering ideas no one understood. Instead, Camus looked at ordinary life, at everyday life, and found signs of the absurd. Have you ever noticed how we sometimes do the same things every day? Wake up, brush our teeth, go to school, come back, have dinner, go to bed, and the next day all over again. Camus noticed that in this daily repetition, a nagging question sometimes arises: why? Why do we do the same things every day? Why do we keep going? It's like a game where you follow all the rules, but no one explains the ultimate goal. Imagine playing soccer without knowing that the goal is to score points, or playing hide-and-seek without knowing that you need to find the other players. Life can feel like that. Sometimes we do everything right, but we don't know exactly why. The most interesting thing is that this feeling can happen to anyone. You don't have to be a great philosopher or scientist. It can happen to a child, an adult, an elderly person. It can happen in the supermarket line, at the bus stop, in the classroom. Suddenly you look around and think, what are we all doing here? Here, I invite you to subscribe and leave a like, because what we will explore is not just philosophy, but the intimate experience of the human condition. Some see the absurd more clearly than others. They are those who perceive the fragility of meaning, who are not content with easy answers, people who cannot pretend that life is merely routine but who feel the weight of meaninglessness in every detail. Have you ever met someone who seems to see the world differently? The person who asks questions no one else does, who doesn't accept simple answers, who always wants to know more. These people have a kind of special vision for the absurdity of life. It's like having a magnifying glass that others don't. While most people go through life accepting things as they are, some can't help but see the cracks beneath the surface. They realize that many of the explanations we're given about life are like sandcastles, beautiful but fragile. Imagine two friends looking up at the starry sky. One of them says, "How beautiful," and keeps walking. The other stops, stares, and begins to feel a mixture of wonder and fear. He thinks we are so small in this vast universe. What does our life in this infinite space mean? They both saw the same stars, but one of them saw something more. He saw the absurd. These people with special vision are everywhere. They can be artists, writers, musicians. They can be that quiet person in the room who's always thinking. They can be children who ask questions that leave adults unanswered. What they have in common is that they can't just go through life without questioning. For these people, routine isn't just routine, it's a mystery. Why do we do the same things every day? Why do we worry so much about things that, in the grand scheme of things, seem so small? Why do we keep going, even when we don't have clear answers? Having this special vision is neither better nor worse than not having it. It's just different. It's a way of experiencing the world that brings both wonder and challenges. But this vision is a burden. Those who see too much distance themselves, those who feel too much isolate themselves. The clarity of the absurd does not bring peace, but loneliness, anguish, and even a certain contempt from society, which prefers to live in comforting illusions. Seeing the absurd has its price. Imagine being the only person wearing glasses in a world where everyone has vision problems, but no one knows it. You'd see things others don't, notice details others ignore. At first, you'd try to tell others what you're seeing, but you'd soon realize they don't understand, or worse, don't want to understand. It's like being that child who realizes the king is naked in the famous tale The Emperor's New Clothes. While everyone else pretends to see magnificent clothes, the child sees the naked truth. But instead of being celebrated for their honesty, these children are often silenced, ignored, or even punished. People who see the absurdity of life often feel alone. While others find comfort in simple answers or unquestioning routines, these people carry heavy questions that have no easy answers. It's like carrying an invisible backpack full of rocks whose weight only you can feel. At school, you might be the classmate who always asks, "But why?" when the teacher explains something. At home, you might be the person who questions family traditions everyone mindlessly follows. At work, you might be the one who questions the greater purpose of daily tasks. Society doesn't always welcome these questioners. It's easier and more comfortable to go with the flow, accept ready-made answers, and not rock the boat. When someone starts asking deep questions, it can make others feel uncomfortable, as if their own certainties are being threatened. That's why many of these people learn to be quiet, to keep their questions to themselves. Some find others like themselves in books, art, music, or in rare and precious conversations with those who share their vision. Others become increasingly isolated, feeling like outsiders in a world that doesn't seem to understand them. Write the word clarity in the comments if you too have ever felt the weight of seeing what others prefer to deny. Imagine Sisyphus, condemned to push the boulder up a mountain, only to watch it roll back down eternally. He is a mirror for us all, but only a few realize the profound horror of this fate. And it is in this recognition that both risk and revelation lie. Let's learn an ancient story that helps us better understand the absurd in Greek mythology. There was a man named Sisyphus. He was clever, cunning, and managed to deceive even the gods. As punishment for his cleverness, Sisyphus received a terrible punishment. He was condemned to push a huge boulder to the top of a mountain, only to watch it roll back down to the foot of the mountain. And then, he would have to start all over again. Forever. Sounds awful, doesn't it? Doing the same grueling work over and over again, knowing it will never truly end. The worst part is that Sisyphus knows exactly what will happen. He knows the stone will roll back. He knows his efforts lead to nothing permanent. Yet he continues. Camus, the philosopher we mentioned earlier, saw in Sisyphus a powerful symbol of the human condition. He said that, in a way, we are all like Sisyphus. We all make efforts, build things, seek achievements, even knowing that, in the end, time passes, things end, and nothing lasts forever. Think about the things we do every day. We make our beds, but at the end of the day we'll unmake them to sleep. We wash the dishes, but soon we'll have more dirty dishes. We study to pass the year, then study to pass the next, and so on. There's something Sisyphean about many of our daily activities. The difference is that while some of us do these activities without much thought, others, those with a special eye for the absurd, notice this endless repetition and feel a certain horror. They ask themselves, is this it? Is this all life offers? Repetition without ultimate purpose. But here's the most interesting part of the Sisyphus story. According to Camus, he imagines Sisyphus descending the mountain after the boulder has rolled down. In this moment, Sisyphus has time to think, to contemplate his fate. And Camus suggests something surprising. We must imagine Sisyphus happy. What do you mean happy in eternal punishment? Yes, because the moment Sisyphus accepts his condition, the moment he clearly sees his absurd destiny, he finds a form of freedom. He becomes greater than his destiny because he understands and consciously accepts it. The absurd arises from the encounter between the human desire for meaning and the indifferent silence of the universe. This fracture is inevitable, but to ignore it is to live a lie. Camus said there is no magical way out, only the courage to sustain this gaze without giving in to illusions. To understand the absurd in a deeper way, we need to think about two things that don't mix very well. On the one hand, we humans, always wanting things to make sense. On the other hand, the universe, which doesn't seem to care about what we want or need. It's as if we're always asking questions important, profound, sincere, and the universe simply doesn't answer. Or worse, it's as if we're shouting these questions into an empty room, where the only sound that comes back is the echo of our own voice. We humans are creatures that need meaning. From a young age we ask why. Why is the sky blue? Why do people die? Why are there wars? Why are we here? And we long for answers that satisfy our need to understand. But the universe, with its distant stars, its giant planets, its immeasurable galaxies, doesn't seem to have been made to answer our questions. It simply exists, following physical laws that don't care about our feelings, desires, or needs. This difference between what we want meaning and what the universe offers silence is what Camus called the absurd. It's not that life is meaningless, it's that the meaning we want doesn't seem to be naturally available in the world. Many people try to solve this problem in different ways. Some create or follow religions that offer answers to the big questions. Others dedicate themselves to science, trying to understand the universe through knowledge. Still others lose themselves in distractions, work, entertainment, drugs to avoid having to think about the big questions. Camus didn't criticize these choices, but he pointed out that they can be ways of escaping the absurd, rather than facing it head-on. He suggested something more difficult, acknowledging the absurd, looking it in the face, without trying to resolve or eliminate the tension. It's like looking at a very difficult math problem and saying, I don't know the answer, and maybe there isn't a simple answer, but I'm going to keep looking at it anyway. It's an act of courage, of intellectual honesty. The absurd, then, is not something to be fixed, it is a condition of our existence. And, according to Camus, recognizing this condition can be the beginning of a more authentic way of living. Those who accept the absurd collide with the world around them. Society is organized around certainties, traditions, and comfortable explanations. To question these is to be seen as dangerous, crazy, or even destructive. When someone begins to see and accept the absurdity of life, something strange happens. They begin to feel out of place in their own world. It's like being a fish that suddenly notices the water around them, something all other fish simply accept without noticing. Our society, the communities we live in, were built on certainties. Certainties about how we should live, what we should value, what we should believe. These certainties are like the cement that holds everything together. They are comforting and provide security. In school, for example, we usually learn answers, not questions. We learn that 2 + 2 = 4, that the capital of Brazil is Brasilia, that we should respect our elders. We are rarely encouraged to ask, but why are these things important? What would happen if things were different? At home, we follow family traditions, we celebrate holidays a certain way, eat certain foods, follow certain rules. When a child asks, why do we do this? The answer is often simply, because it's always been that way. In society at large, there are clear expectations. Study, work, get married, have children, save money, retire. This normal path of life is rarely questioned. It's simply what we're expected to do. And then someone comes along who sees the absurdity, who realizes that many of these certainties are just conventions, not absolute truths. This person begins to ask uncomfortable questions, to question what everyone accepts as normal. Society's reaction is rarely positive. Those who question too much can be seen as rebellious, problematic, pessimistic, or even a threat. Why can't you just accept things as they are? Is a question many questioners have heard. It's like that story of the naked king all over again. No one wants to be the one to point out that the king is naked, because it shatters the comfortable illusion everyone is sharing. But someone has to tell the truth, even if it makes them uncomfortable. The philosopher Kierkegaard, who also thought extensively about these issues, spoke of the individual versus the herd. He argued that society tries to transform everyone into a herd that thinks and acts alike. The individual who resists this, who insists on thinking for themselves, faces loneliness and misunderstanding. If this point resonates with you, please comment the word rupture in the comments to show that you too have felt this shock against the collective. But the real danger isn't seeing the absurd, it's failing to learn to live with it. It's losing yourself in despair, falling into nihilism, or dissolving into a life that doesn't belong to you. This is the fine line between lucidity and collapse. Seeing the absurd can be frightening. It's like taking off your rose-colored glasses and seeing the world as it really is, with all its contradictions and uncertainties. But, according to Camus and other existentialist thinkers, the real danger lies not in seeing this reality, but in how we react to it. Some people, realizing the absurdity of life, this disconnect between our desire for meaning and the silence of the universe, fall into a pit of despair. They think, if nothing has guaranteed meaning, why should I care about anything? Why should I try to speak? Why should I continue? This despair can lead to a life of apathy, where nothing matters and nothing is worthwhile. Others go to the opposite extreme. They escape the absurd by throwing themselves into constant distractions, overwork, unbridled consumption, the pursuit of superficial pleasures, addiction to technology or substances. They try to fill the void with noise, to avoid having to face the silence of the absurd. There are also those who surrender themselves completely to some external cause, politics, religion, ideology, not out of conscious choice, but out of desperation to have something solid to hold on to. They replace their own thinking with groupthink and thus lose themselves. All of these paths represent what Camus would call philosophical suicide, ways of escaping or denying the absurd, rather than learning to live with it. The real challenge, according to Camus, is to walk the tightrope, recognizing the absurd without falling into despair, seeking meaning knowing that no meaning is guaranteed or absolute, creating one's own values without needing external guarantees. It's a difficult position, requiring constant courage and honesty. It's like learning to ride a bike without training wheels. At first, it's scary. You fall, you hurt yourself, you want to give up. But with practice and persistence, you find a balance, not a perfect, static balance, but a dynamic balance that requires constant adjustment. Likewise, living consciously with the absurd is not about finding a definitive answer, but learning to move in a world of questions, finding meaning even while knowing that this meaning is created, not discovered. Camus offers a path not to deny the absurd, but to embrace it. Like Sisyphus, we must imagine that the awareness of repetition is not just condemnation, but freedom. By embracing the void, we discover the possibility of creating our own meaning, however temporary, however fragile. So, if the world offers no ready-made meaning, if the universe doesn't answer our deepest questions, what should we do? give up, pretend we don't see the problem. Camus suggests a different path, a path of transformation. He proposes that instead of running from the absurd or being overwhelmed by it, we can embrace it. We can look squarely at this strange condition we find ourselves in, longing for meaning in a silent universe, and say, yes, that's how it is. Now what do I do with it? Remember the story of Sisyphus, condemned to eternally push a boulder up a mountain. Camus sees in this story not only tragedy, but also possibility. The moment Sisyphus fully recognizes his condition, the moment he accepts his absurd destiny without illusions, something magical happens. He becomes greater than his fate. It's like that moment when you realize you are dreaming. Within the dream, suddenly you gain a new perspective, a new freedom within the dream. Similarly, recognizing the absurd gives us a new perspective on life. If the universe doesn't impose meaning, it means we're free to create meaning. If there's no divine or cosmic script for our lives, it means we can write our own. It's scary, yes, but it's also liberating. Camus suggests that we should be like artists of our own lives. An artist doesn't wait for meaning to come from outside. They create meaning through their work. Likewise, we can create meaning through our choices, our actions, and our relationships. This created meaning is not eternal, not absolute, not guaranteed. It is fragile, temporary, personal, but it is no less valuable because of that. In fact, it can be even more precious precisely because it is fragile, like a flower that blooms for only a day, or like a moment of deep connection with another person. Camus called this attitude revolt, not a violent or destructive revolt, but an affirmation of life even in the face of absurdity. It's saying, even knowing that the universe doesn't care, even knowing that all things pass, I still choose to create, to love, to fight for what I value. It's like Sisyphus, who keeps pushing his boulder, but now with a transformed consciousness. He knows the boulder will roll back, but finds dignity in his own effort, in the very act of continuing. The danger is not seeing the absurd, but letting it devour us. The true act of courage is to live knowing that nothing guarantees meaning, and yet continue creating. We've reached the end of our journey through absurdity and existentialism. We began with that strange feeling we all experience at times, the feeling that something doesn't quite fit between what we expect from life and what life actually offers. We've seen how some of us see this condition more clearly and how it can be both a gift and a burden. We explored the story of Sisyphus eternally pushing his boulder up the mountain as a mirror of our own condition. We saw how society doesn't always welcome those who question established certainties. And finally, we discovered that the real danger lies not in seeing the absurd, but in not knowing how to live with it. The path that Camus and other existentialist philosophers offer us is not an easy one. There are no magic answers, no simple solutions. It is a path of constant awareness, of the continuous creation of meaning in a universe that offers no ready-made meaning. But there is profound beauty in this path. There is dignity in creating meaning, even when knowing that meaning is fragile. There is courage in living fully, even when knowing that life is finite. There is freedom in choosing our values, even when knowing that no value is absolute or guaranteed. As Camus said, the struggle itself to reach the peaks is enough to fill a human heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because his destiny changed, but because his perspective on that destiny transformed. Perhaps the secret isn't finding definitive answers to life's big questions, but learning to live well with them. Perhaps wisdom lies not in having certainties, but in knowing how to navigate uncertainty. And perhaps, in the end, the meaning of life is not something to be discovered, but something to be created, through our choices, our actions, our relationships, the love we give and receive, the small and big things we do in the time we have. Have you ever felt this way too? Leave a comment, like and subscribe so we can share this reflection together.